Hey guys, and welcome to a brand new Battlefield 4 video. Today I have some pretty exciting stuff to show you. I have gameplay of the 5 brand new weapons we will be receiving with China Rising. Now of course China Rising still isn't out for a few weeks yet, it is released in December, but I've got gameplay here of the 5 new weapons. Now of course they include the L85, the MP7, the Mtar, the RPK-74 and the L96. Now of course these are all weapons we have seen in Battlefield before. We did see all these weapons in Battlefield 3, and interestingly, apart from the RPK-74, these are all weapons we did receive in DLCs in Battlefield 3 as well. So the first weapon we have here is the L85. Now the first time we saw this featured in Battlefield was with Back to Karkin. Now this weapon had a lot of people very excited. It's a gun we don't see featured in many first-person shooters. Now its full name is the L85A2 or the SA-80 Mark II, which stands for Small Arms of the 1980s, and it's a bullpup assault rifle used by the British military. Now the main difference to notice between this weapon and the version we saw in Battlefield 3 is to do with the body. The version we saw in Battlefield 3 was actually quite an old version of the L85. It still featured the plastic green foregrip on the weapon. As you can see, this is now being replaced with a Picatinny rail, allowing your accessories like your foregrip, your laser and your flashlight to be attached very easily. So the weapon we see in Battlefield 4 is a much more up-to-date version of the L85. Now one of the other biggest differences with this weapon is the animation when reloading a completely empty weapon. Now the charging handle on the L85 is on the right hand side of the weapon, and as you can see here, he now flips the weapon over, releases a charging handle and chambers the first round, something we didn't see in Battlefield 3. Now moving on to the carbines, we have the Mtar. Now the first time we saw this was with the DLC Close Quarters. Now the first thing I want to say about this weapon is look at the sheer size of it. This takes up a hell of a lot of the screen. To say it's quite a small weapon in real life, this is a very big weapon on the screen. Now throughout this video I am just using the standard iron sights with the weapon. Now when you're looking down sight on this weapon, the iron sights aren't too bad, but just look how big they are when you're actually holding the weapon by your side. It takes up so much of the screen, so I do recommend when we unlock this weapon you really want to get some red dot sights on there as quickly as possible, because I'm actually quite blown away at how large this weapon looks. Now again, this weapon is a bullpup, and when taking a look at the reloads, I couldn't see too much of a difference between an empty reload and a charged reload. He doesn't actually take his hand to the charging handle on the front of the weapon, you can see there, so it's quite strange how this reload system works, but there isn't too much difference. Both reloads are very quick. Now moving on to the support class, we have the formidable RPK-74, a weapon we did receive on release with Battlefield 3. Now of course in Battlefield 4 we have the up-to-date RPK-12, the 2012 version of this weapon, but it is pretty cool to have 2 different versions of the same gun. Now to be honest, there isn't too much difference between this and the weapon we did see in Battlefield 3. I'm not 100% sure about the reload animation, whether or not we did see him charge that charging handle on the right side of the weapon. If you do know, tell me in the comments below, but it does look like this weapon is still going to be the powerhouse we had in Battlefield 3. Now moving on to the PDWs, we have the MP7. Now this is a weapon we did have with the base game of Battlefield 3, and it was a great piece of kit, but it did seem overshadowed by the M5K and the P90. But all the same, it did hold its own in the battle, and it was a great little gun. Now just like the RPK, this weapon has seen very little change in the transition between Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. The reload animation is almost identical, the weapon model looks very similar, the rate of fire, the recoil, the iron sights are all very similar to Battlefield 3. So if you were very comfortable with this weapon in that game, you should have no problem jumping onto it in Battlefield 4. Now finally, for the recon class, we have the L96, a sniper rifle we did see released with Back to Karkin in Battlefield 3, and it soon became a very popular weapon. Now again, this is a British rifle just like the L85, and in Battlefield 3 it did seem to have a feature where it did shoot slightly to the left. Now again, throughout this video I have just used a standard iron sight, but when I was aiming down sight at close range and medium range, it didn't seem to have that left shooting ability anymore. It does seem a little bit changed, but that was a feature we did come to know in Battlefield 3. Now interestingly to note here, I don't have any kind of camo or paint on the weapon. This kind of tanny orangey yellow paint is actually the standard colour the weapon comes in. So that rounds up all of the 5 weapons we will be seeing with the China Rising DLC in December. Personally, I'm very excited to get my hands on the L85 again. It was a weapon I loved in Battlefield 3, and it does look pretty cool in Battlefield 4. Now if you did enjoy this video and find it quite informative, or just enjoyed seeing these new weapons, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, it does help me out a lot, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. But in the meantime guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.